Hi, I'm Brian Correa, Test Plot Manager for Arts Ranch in Oxnard, California. I'm here today with Dwight Rowe. Dwight has been working on developing an automatic lysimeter with us here, and today he is going to go over the setup of the lysimeter and just detail the steps that a grower would need to take to have one of these lysimeters running in their own site. Dwight, is there anything you'd like to cover before you go into details?
Sure. Just a brief description about this lysimeter. It's developed by PlantLogic, and there's a really nice website that shows all of the data. The data comes in as a tool for the growers to use to get actionable insights to what's going on exactly with the watering. It shows the water coming in and the water going out, and most importantly, the percent of leachate. And it's data logging every 1 minute, this data. So it's going to be a very useful tool for everybody that uses it. So let's get on to how do we put this thing in.
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to start off with a brief description of all the parts and the tools that are necessary to complete this installation. Okay, we're going to start off with the solar panel. And we've got the water meter and the connectors to the drip tube. These are all the sensors we'll be installing today. These are the lysimeter pans that go underneath the plants. And these tubes down here are extra material for connecting up the lysimeter trays to our leachate collection. Okay, this is the pump box. There's the filter and the pump for draining out the leachate. This is the manifold for the drip. This we will put in the pH and EC meter to measure the drip. So this is the drain tube where the leachate comes down into. We're going to bury this in the ground. Inside here is a sensor that we'll show you later. This is the control box. This is where all the wires and everything connect to, and the radio transmitter is in there to send our data out to the world. These are a bunch of hand tools that we have. A little bit of grease, some pliers, knife, cutters, some other miscellaneous tools that we need to do the install. The drill is a really important tool, as you will discover. And then we have a variety of digging tools. A little trowel. This is a bit that we can get the dirt started with. This is a hole digger for digging our hole. Shovels. And the pots, we have a pot that's already drilled, and I'm going to show you that. We have a bucket for water because we'll need that for calibration, and some funnels. And most important is we have a little trash can here. It's important when you're doing an installation to keep all of your trash off. We don't want to leave a site with a bunch of our trash around. So I consider this trash bucket to be one of my most important tools. Have it easily at hand, keep the site clean. Okay, we're going to work on installing the solar panel with the antenna. First thing I want to do is to tie these wires on here. We've got these little removable zip ties, reusable. Well, that's pretty cool. I'm just going to put a few of those on there. Okay, this has the antenna already mounted on it. Up we go. This is a special clamp, Jorgensen clamp with a bolt in it. And that just helps us to get it set. Now we want to position this thing so it's positioned to the south. And then I'll just put another clamp on here to hold it in place. And twist it just right. Wind up. And clamp. Now this thing is ready for drilling. Get our electric drill. But first, I'm going to put a little dent where we're going to drill, so it's easy to start the drill. There we go. Drill some holes all the way through. There we go. Tighten it up a little with our little 7/16 wrench, or a socket wrench. All right, sometimes when you drill the hole, there's a little gap and you might need to clamp it a little bit tighter. This bolt isn't quite long enough, and I'm just going to whack on it a little bit. We'll clamp it tighter, and we'll get that nut to go on there. Okay, next we're going to install the drainage collection tube. This gets buried down into the ground about this deep. Inside of this tube is the sensor that measures the volume of the drip. Of the drain. This measures the volume of the drain. And on here is the manifold for the pH and the EC sensor. Okay, so first thing I want to do is cut with my knife a hole in the plastic. I put our box on here, the pump box, and what I want to do is to cut it in a pattern. I'm just going to mark in here with any old thing. And I'm going to cut it here, cut it here, here. Now we can fold this back. And that's where we're going to dig our hole. Okay, we're going to start off with drilling a little hole in here to make it easier. In case the soil's a little bit hard, it's helpful to have an auger. This is just a regular soil auger. You can get these online. I'm just going to drill some holes. This soil is extremely moist and sandy, so it's easy. Now we're going to use a post hole digger to dig our hole. Needs to be about 10 inches in diameter, 8 to 10 inches in diameter, and about 30 inches deep. Okay, I've got some marks on this digger at 2 feet and at 3 feet, so I know how deep this is going. We want to go about 2.5 feet. That's our depth. I'm going to just put this in here and see how it's going with the depth. And that's pretty good. I'm going to go just a little tiny bit lower, get this a little bit below the surface. And then I'm going to make a little more room so we can install these sensors more easily. Okay, now I'm testing how deep this is in the hole. And that looks pretty good to me. Pretty up and down. We got plenty of room to work here. Next I'm going to install the EC sensor in the manifold, and I'll tighten that up. And then the pH sensor. The pH sensor needs to be in liquid all the time. That's why we have these protective caps with water in there and a little sponge. So be careful when you put these in that it's not very much time until you get water in it inside the tube. This is designed so that this will always be wet inside this manifold. So these just screw right in. Okay, now I've got the manifold sensors tightened up. And again, this is for the drain. Inside this tube is the pressure sensor that measures the volume in the tube. The bottom has a fitting here, and this tube is connected to the pump going out, and this tube on the top coming in is connected to our lysimeters from the drain from 3 pots or so. Now I'm just going to set this inside our hole, just like so. We're going to put the box on top, just like that. And pull all these things into the middle. All of our wires. Hole here. And there we go. Now we're all set. Okay, we're going to put the lysimeter trays in next. One under each pot. One. Okay, then these all need to come and connect to this with some of this 1/2-inch tubing. The tubing just presses right on the trays. We'll come down here. We'll put a T in for this next one. I'm using a standard tubing cutter. It's also used for PVC pipe. We'll cut it just right there. And we'll connect this to this pipe with another short piece. Continuing down. Okay, so now I'm going to connect this tube up to these others. And I'm just going to dig a little of the dirt from underneath, and I'll cut a little hole in the fabric here. This comes through. So this tube is connecting up to our manifold, the end for the manifold. And this comes up. I just cut a hole in the black cloth, and we're just going to cut it so that it meets that there. You don't want a lot of extra tubing because this needs to drain very easily. I'm just going to cut it right there, connect it, and that's it. We've connected up the whole drain. Is it going?
Yes.
Okay, this tube is coming from the drain, and it's going to this filter first. We're just going to plug it right in there. It has to be filtered before it goes to the pump so that it doesn't plug that pump up. Okay, now we're going to hook the exit from the pump so that it goes out through that hole in the box, and it just goes right on there. So when the pump operates, it will drain into the trough. Okay, now we've got the pump all plumbed up. Next is to put these wires through. And we have to fish all these wires into the control box. Let's hook the control box up, shall we? This is our tube. Connects up here. Now we'll straighten this pipe out so that we can fish these wires through easily. I have in my collection a handy dandy little stiff wire. This is just a stiff piece of building wire, solid core, but you could use anything that you can fish through the length of this tube. I'm going to put it from here in like so. If you've got excess wire, it's a good idea to coil it up and keep it clean. And just measure here enough to go to the box. And when you're done coiling it up, just put a little tie on it to keep it clean and so it doesn't get away from you inside the box. Okay, I'm going to align these connectors and then tape them to our little piece of wire here with some handy dandy black tape. You can use any kind of tape you got. Okay, and now we'll just pull on this black wire, pull wire, pull all these wires in, push from this end and pull from this end. Okay, so we're all done inside this pump box now. just put the lid on. And then we'll put the control box on top. Just like now I'm going to install the sensors into the manifold for the drip. The EC sensor and the pH sensor. Okay, these wires for the drip sensors are just going to go right underneath the edge of this pump box, just like that. And then these wires get pulled into the control box with that wire, the same wire that we pulled the other ones with. Okay, so now we've got these sensors coming in here, these 4 sensors, 5 sensors, plus the pump wire, the gray pump wire. And we're just going to plug these all in. Each one of these is identified. This one says 06 drip EC. So we would find the 06 drip EC, and that goes right here. This one is drain volume. Drain volume is 03. Plugs in here. This one is drip pH 07. And these pH sensors need to come all the way up here. Plug in here. These are a little twist lock. The other pH sensor must be number 5. 05 drip. That one's done. Now we got this EC, drain EC 04. This one. And finally the gray one is the pump. And the pump connects up here. Okay. We are going to tie these wires up with these ties in here, just to keep them out of the way and looking nice. That's it. Okay, you might want to have some kind of cushion for your knees. I use an old boat cushion, works great. We're going to install next the water meter. Make sure the arrow on here is in the direction of flow. It won't work the other way, so this needs to go in the direction that the water is flowing. And all you need to do to install this is to cut the tube, a drip tube. This is 3/4 inch tube in this case, and you cut it exactly at the right length. And the proper length, you gotta remember that this goes back inside here. So cut it a little bit longer than what you would think. And then all you do is you just tighten up these connections, and you're done. Then the water meter wire gets plugged into the control box in the connector that says water meter. Okay, for these soil moisture sensors, we need to drill a hole in these pots. And we would put one in the top and one in the bottom. But I want to show you the procedure for drilling. This is a 40 millimeter hole saw, 1 in 9/16 diameter. And the way you do this is you want to run the drill backwards. It seems crazy, but basically what it does is it just wears away at the pot. If you do it the other way, it tears the pot terribly. And then that hole, the sensor will fit in very tightly. Okay, so I have pre-drilled a pot with a hole in the bottom and a hole at the top. And it's ready to be installed. And the way we would do that, if it's already planted like this one is, we would just turn this upside down and put the contents, just turn that upside down and then put this in and then turn it over. If you're doing this before the planting, obviously you would drill these holes before. And if you're doing it after the planting, you can just drill right into the pot itself. Okay, these soil moisture sensors just go right into that hole. They should come into the pot, I don't know, maybe a quarter of an inch protrude in there. But all that's necessary is that these 4 stainless steel probes contact the soil in the pot. And then you just plug it right in to the control box, to these connectors, just like this. Screw it in, plug it in. And that's it. The next thing we need to do then is to connect the solar power wire. That's this one. Comes from the solar panel up on top, and it just goes right into this connector. It says solar panel. And that screws in. And lastly is the antenna wire, the small antenna wire. Goes in on the other side of the box, and it just screws right into that little connector, like that. And that's it. We should be ready to calibrate. Okay, so that ends up our installation video. The next one that we have up is going to be for calibration. So we'll see you on the next video.